Good morning one and all. Let us try to have a look over basic introduction to OSI layers over here. So let us consider a situation. Person A wants to communicate with person B, but person A is South Indian and he knows only the Tamil language, whereas person B is North Indian who knows only Hindi language. Can there be communication possible between A and B? The answer is obviously no, as they don't know a common language. Communication or interaction between A and B is quite impossible without a translator or mediator in between. Very similar to that, in earlier days, Apple and IBM devices were not able to communicate with one another. International Organization for Standardization, that is nothing but ISO, in 1984 firstly came up with something called as Open System for Interconnection. That's what the OSI abbreviation of Open System Interconnection is, nothing but OSI, and accordingly we have got the OSI layer model or OSI reference model in networking. Typically this OSI reference model is consisting of 7 different layers, starting with physical layer, data link layer, network layer, on the top of which we have got transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and the topmost layer is nothing but the application layer, out of which transport layer is treated as heart of the entire OSI model. Now the question arises, how exactly data flows from application layer into the presentation layer? Before that, we can easily remember all these layers in the form of physical layer up to the application layer, that is in a bottom-up manner, with a single line sentence as please do not throw Shahi Pulao away, or in a up-down manner or in a top-down manner in the form of all people seem to need data processing. You can easily remember in either of the way. Typically, the application layer data is coming at or appearing at presentation layer and is being further forwarded to session layer. How exactly this flow happens, you can see it over here very clearly, and at the other end what is happening, something is getting removed. At the first side it is each and every layer is adding something to the entity coming from the layer above it. At the other side there is removal of the things which are being added. So this is what the process of encapsulation and decapsulation. At each and every layer, typically header is being added by that own individual layer for the information coming from the layer above it. At data link layer, typically along with header, trailer is being added so as to deal with error control mechanism. At the other end, that is at the receiver end, all these headers are being thrown away gradually, and the typically process is known as data decapsulation. This is what the entire concept of data encapsulation and data decapsulation. Similarly, at session layer also, data from presentation layer will appear and session layer will further forward it to the transport layer. At this point, it is essential to take into account one important terminology, that is nothing but protocols from the networking perspective. So what do you understand by protocols? Protocols are nothing but set of rules and regulations for devices lying in network to communicate or to interact with one another. For example, English language. Consider a situation, my mother tongue is something other than English language, and if I want to learn the English language, typically I need to take into account basic rules associated with that, basic grammar associated with that, and syntax of that particular English language. Very similar to that, in networking perspective, these protocols are characterized by 3 key features, that is nothing but syntax, semantics, and timings. How exactly data flows starting from the application layer up to the physical layer? You can see it from application layer, it appears at presentation layer. From presentation layer, it appears at session layer. From session layer, whenever data appears at transport layer, the protocol data unit is being termed as segment and not simply as data. This transport layer segment, when is being appearing at network layer, it is termed as packet. That network layer packet, whenever appears at data link layer, it is termed as frame. And that data link layer frame, whenever is being appearing ultimately at physical layer, that is termed as bits, or that is in the form of binary digits, that is nothing but sequences of zeros and ones. Consider a situation: workstation A wants to send some information to workstation B, or workstation A wants to communicate with workstation B, or client wants to communicate, interact with server B. In that particular situation, with the concepts just now taken into account, how exactly communication will occur from the notion of OSI reference model. So you can observe it over here. Typically at transport layer, whenever session layer data is appearing, a transport layer is adding its own header to it. Now the session layer data along with transport layer header added to it will give rise to a transport layer segment. That transport layer segment, whenever appears at network layer and is being appended by network layer header, gives rise to something called as network layer packet. That network layer packet, whenever is being sandwiched in between data link layer header and data link layer trailer, ultimately gives rise to a frame structure, which essentially is being further converted to bit pattern over here. This is how at the sender end, or at the side of workstation A, the process is happening. Exactly reverse process is occurring at the receiver end, or at the server end over here. Typically, here the process is gradual removal of respective headers and getting back the original information retrieved in its desired format. This is how entire communication occurs between workstation A and workstation B from the notion of OSI layer model architecture through the concept of encapsulation and decapsulation. I hope you might have understood this. Thank you.